Hello and welcome to Make It Happen with Will Polston. I'm Will Polston. This is episode number 124, and in this episode, I'm joined by Michael Serwa. Michael coaches the elite using his signature no bullshit approach. Starting in 2001, he's built one of the most successful personal coaching practices in the world. He's the author of From Good to Amazing and has been featured in Forbes, GQ, The Times, The Observer, The Telegraph, and on the BBC and Sky News. In this episode, we talk about how to go from being good to amazing. So Michael, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Will.
So you're a man that, by your own words, you strive for perfection, but you'll settle for excellence.
Yes. The goal is always in anything I do, and I don't do too many things, right? And one of the reasons why I don't do too many things, I don't try to do too many things, is because I know myself, and I know that if I do something, I will be aiming for perfection. So now imagine trying to do 10 things, aiming for perfection with all 10 of them. That'll be exhausting and not achievable, right? So whatever I do, I always aim for perfection, and occasionally I settle for excellence.
So I think this is important because a lot of people use the language, look, I'm a perfectionist, but I'm a perfectionist. And because they're a perfectionist, they don't get stuff done, they don't take action, and they use it as an opportunity to beat themselves up. You know, even if they do something, then they will minimize what they've done, and then that impacts their self-esteem and a whole heap of different things. But that sort of that suffix of "but you're willing to settle for excellence" is sort of your I suppose your valve that allows you to just actually, even if it's not exactly how you want it to be, you're good with excellence.
Absolutely. So even when you see, I never say I'm a perfectionist. Maybe I said it once or twice, but when I say I'm a perfectionist, I don't say I'm a perfectionist. I say I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, right? Or I have a tendency to be a perfectionist, because I recognize the difference between a perfectionist and being a little bit of a perfectionist. There is a quote from one of the co-founders of LinkedIn. He said, when you launch something along the lines of, when you launch the product or service and it's perfect, it means that you launched it too late. So now I look at my website and I believe it's perfect. I also believe it happened to be the best website, internationally speaking, in the coaching industry, right? Like I said, that's my belief. I'm not saying it is the best. I believe it's the best, right? And it's not the best because I'm a fucking genius, right? And I sat one night and wrote the best copy ever and put everything together, created the best testimonials ever from a technical standpoint. I've been perfecting this website for the last 10 and a half years, right? But I also know that 3 months from now, I'm going to look at this website and I'm going to find problems with that website. I'm going to correct those problems. And then I'm going to say, okay, now it's perfect. It wasn't perfect 3 months ago. Now it's perfect, right? But where I'm going with this, if you saw this website 10 and a half years ago, it looked like fucking shit. And I knew it was shit, right? But that was the best I could do, given that I didn't have the money to pay the designer to design it for me. I had to do it by myself. And I'm not retarded, technically speaking, but I'm not a techie person, right? The picture was awful. It was taken by a friend on a bench in a park. It wasn't photoshopped, right? The copy was, first of all, there was barely any copy. And the copy that I had was mainly taken from the websites of other coaches, right? Oh, this paragraph will do. Okay, let me take this part. Let me borrow it. Yeah, and it was just, and the testimonials, because I didn't have any clients, right? The testimonials were copy and pasted from the websites of other coaches as well, right? And then over time, I replaced them with the actual testimonials of people I worked with, right? So as I was saying to you before we started recording, at the beginning, I had nothing. I had a desire, I had the goal in my head of being the best I can be in my line of work, and I was willing to do whatever it takes, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody, right? So as far as I'm concerned, somebody could disagree. As far as I'm concerned, nobody got hurt by me borrowing the content from other coach websites, right? I didn't see any harm in it, right? And given that I was charging £20 per session to begin with, I can assure you that my first clients, even my first clients, despite the fact I didn't know what the fuck I was doing as a coach, they got at least 20 pounds value out of those sessions, right? And then over time, and that never stopped, I've been working on this website, perfecting this website. Then I've changed written testimonials into the testimonials I have right now, which is video recorded testimonials at the highest 4K quality, whatever. So since I have a website, this website has to be the best it can be. Since I have a book, this book has to be the best it can be. And every now and then, the other day, somebody asked me, how come I'm not on TikTok, or have I considered being like having TikTok presence? And I said, listen, here's the problem with TikTok. First of all, I'm not a 13-year-old girl. Just kidding. I know that all the people on TikTok right now. But I can't just be on TikTok. If I was to be on TikTok, I would have to create something of value there, right? The reason I'm not on Twitter is because my heart is not in it, and I didn't just want to have any Twitter profile. So I would rather have no Twitter profile, no TikTok profile, than having a lousy one, right? And I'm not saying my Instagram profile or Facebook or LinkedIn are the best in the world, but they are very good given what I do, I believe, right? Given like my overall branding. So when I do something, I try to do it to the best of my ability, or I don't do it at all, right? Or at the very least, I don't bring it to you know, I don't bring it to the public eye unless it's at least excellent, in my opinion. This is all subjective, but at least in my opinion, something has to be excellent for me to show it to the public, basically.
And on that note, there's three things by your own admission that you sort of are world class at, which is people, the psychology of success and winning, and personal development. These are three real specialist subjects for you. But before we go into the reason why you're as good as you are, and we're going to learn some things from you, what I'm interested to know is, how has that come about? Because it's very evident, people listen to this, you live in London right now, and obviously you've got an accent, and for people that are guessing, where's his accent from? Where's his accent from? He's from, you're from Poland originally, right?
Yes.
So you're originally from Poland, but you come to the UK at 22, right?
Yeah.
So what was life, if we could get like the 3-minute version of life prior to 22 in Poland, the decision to come to the UK, and then to the point where you decided, right, actually, I'm going to go on this different trajectory to become a coach. Because I think what's quite interesting, you and I actually, so I'm going to, spoiler alert, I'm about to share a little bit of you actually worked in retail for some years as well. So I worked in retail from the age of 15 years old, 14 or 15 years old, to the age of, I was 18. And I always wanted to own my own clothes shop. That was my dream. I wanted to become a millionaire, own my own clothes shop. I worked in what was at the time the only clothes shop in the world that was outside of a city that sold Gucci, Prada, Dolce & Gabbana, and Etro in the same store. Outside of a city that was an independent store. And I got to meet a lot of very interesting, successful, quote, open quote, people. And then when I realized that wasn't possible, that's then took me on a very different trajectory. So I think that was quite interesting. We both were in retail, but yeah, if we can go back and hear that 3-minute version.
Yeah, the difference is that you had a dream of you know, the dream that you've shared. For me, retail was very much a job that I needed to pay the bills, and I have to say, because again, like, you know, when I do something like, okay, I got a job in retail, it's not like I was looking for a job in retail. It happened to be a job in retail. But then, you know, I'm 22, I'm broke, I can barely speak English, and I'm in London, and I got this job, and I thought, okay, I have this job already, I might as well be the best I can be at this job. And sure enough, I was so fucking good that it was Zara. I was so good at it that I got promoted from a sales assistant to a deputy manager, so managerial position, in 9 months, which at the time I've been told was the fastest promotion in the history of Zara UK for someone without retail experience too. And again, it wasn't, I always say that, you know, I achieved the things I achieved, and I excelled at the things I excelled at in life, not because I'm freaking special. I was born special. I have this amazing fucking genes. I'm so fucking smart. I'm smarter than everybody else. I apply myself in a special way to the things that I do. And because the way we apply ourselves to things, it's a choice, I believe, and I say that on my website, there's this paragraph when I say, I've achieved all this. I believe I can have anything. I believe that I can be anyone. I also believe I can be with anyone, romantically speaking. And then I say, I also believe that whatever I can become or have or be, like whatever I can do, you can do too, right? So whoever's reading that, because I know it's the attitude more than anything that is responsible for me achieving the things I achieved in my life, including that promotion in Zara all those years ago, right? And I was very happy. I was like, oh, this is just fucking retail. I was super happy with that promotion. I was super happy getting the recognition I've been getting. But I also knew why I've been getting, because I worked harder than everybody else, almost everybody else. I never missed a day. I've never been late. I was asking for overtime. I had great relationships with my managers. So coming back to the original question, no one, and by no one, I mean absolutely no one, was surprised when I announced at 28, so 11 years ago, that I'm going to be a personal coach. Even the people that knew me when I was a teenager, so long before coming to London, and certainly long before coming to realization that I want to be a coach. And there's a few reasons for it. I've always been good with people, right? Naturally. My mother's very good with people. My father is good with people in his own way. So I got that from my parents, I suppose, whether it's genes or just growing up, watching my parents being the way they are. I've always been good with people. And what I mean by that is I've always been very outspoken. Some people think that people who follow me on Facebook, oh, this guy talks like that, and he's so, because he's successful. But everybody who knows me for more than 10 years knows that I was exactly the same way, even when I was fucking broke, right? That this big mouth was always there from a young age. I would stand out to my teachers from a very young age, from a primary school kind of age already, right? Teachers that would be saying things I didn't agree with. So I've always been good with people in terms of the confidence, the social confidence. I've always been likable and trustworthy, which obviously, to become successful as a personal coach, if people don't like you, people don't trust you, doesn't matter how knowledgeable you are, doesn't matter how many books you've read and courses you've done and what you say on your website, you're gonna need to have that initial consultation with someone, right, before they become a client. And if people don't like you, don't trust you, it's just not gonna happen, right? So being likable and trustworthy, I'm not saying everybody likes me, but more people like me than people that don't like me, and that's always been the case, right? It's not something I've worked on, it's something that I've always been, right? So that's number one. Number two, I had interest in psychology and even psychiatry in my teens. I remember reading Sigmund Freud. It was either biography or I think it was autobiography at the age of 16. So I was definitely a weird fucking child, because instead of chasing girls, I started chasing girls already at 16, but I was more interested in Sigmund Freud's autobiography than chasing girls and drinking, right? That came later, by the way. So I've done my fair share of that as well. So quitting school at 17, getting very, very heavily involved in art. So I used to play trumpet. I was in music school for a year before they sacked me. I was involved in theater. I was writing. So it was like my art period. But psychology was always there. There was interest in psychology always present. Then I had my party period, after trying MDMA for the first time in Amsterdam. Great place to fucking have your first MDMA. I had around 2 years of being a party animal. Then I came to London. I started working in retail, as we were saying. Had a relatively successful career there. Over 6 years I've been there. And then at 23, so a year after coming to London, I read The Secret, something my girlfriend brought home one day, and it sparked my interest. I read The Secret, and that was the moment where the personal development interest. Oh, there you go. There you go.
They're in the background, yeah.
Speaking of the devil, yeah. So that was my what's the expression? Gateway drug. yeah, that was my entry point to personal development, and that was 16 years ago, and my interest in personal development has never diminished, right? So when I decided to become a coach at 28, so 5 years after reading my first personal development book, So The Secret, I was already knowledgeable, not at the level I am now, but I was already knowledgeable in the field of personal development, right? Personal development wasn't something I started to learn about after becoming a coach. I already had a good basic level, but good basic, strong basic level of understanding of personal development concepts, including the field of spirituality, including the field of female psychology and things like that, right? So the background was there, and like I said before, when I announced, when I told people, like the closest people in my life, so my mother, my best friend at the time, some girlfriends, everybody went, yeah. Everybody felt like it was such an obvious thing for me to do. Even people who didn't understand what life coaching was could intuitively tell that that sounds like something I could be good at. I knew this is something like, I knew when I had this realization, I remember like it was yesterday, when I had this realization on the back of watching like a personal development a video on YouTube, I just fucking knew it. Right? It became so clear to me, not only that this is something that I want to do, but also that this is something I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. And I was like, somebody says something like that at 28, but like 10 and a half years later, that thought has never left my mind. I've never for a second doubted that I want to be coaching for the rest of my life. Right? And I had my ups and downs when I say downs, I didn't have periods when I was questioning the career choice that I've made. I didn't have a period where I was like struggling financially or anything like that. But sure enough, you have clients that are a little bit suboptimal, and initial consultations with people who are not right for you, and you have people saying yes to working with you, and they're excited and they say I can't wait, and then they disappear, and that's a bit disappointing. But it's just like with being in a romantic relationship, if you really love that person, you can get away with, or like they can get away with a lot, right? You can have your arguments, you can have dramas and disasters that you go through together. But if you are with the right person, I believe that nothing can separate you, right? It's like that. I can't imagine for something so bad happening in my coaching practice for me to question whether I'm doing the right thing. I just can't. I can't imagine it.
Cool. So that's the sort of the journey. There's one thing that I want to pick up on that you skimmed over very, very quickly, but I want to go into it. Now, I believe that life happens for us, not to us. And there are moments that happen in our life that even in the moment, it feels like our world is falling apart. It is the universe, if you like, course correcting us to something that's greater or better for us, even in the moment when it's gone completely against how we expected it to go. Now, you had you mentioned it, a period of your life where playing a musical instrument was a real passion and desire and dream of yours, a trumpet, if I remember correctly. But something happened, didn't it? What was that?
So I was in music school at the age of 16, and my goal was to be the best jazz trumpet player. So there's a theme in my life. Like if I do something, I need to be the best in the world, right? And I loved trumpet. For that year I was playing trumpet. I loved trumpet the way I've loved coaching for the last 10 and a half years, right? I was obsessed with it, right? And I got to music school. It was a classical music school, not jazz school. I wanted to be the best jazz trumpet player alive, not a classical trumpet player. But there was no jazz music schools in my city. So the best I could get would be to go to like a classical music school and then play jazz and try to play jazz like by myself. But to cut a very long story short, there's a full story in my book. what I, not even a full story, because I remember my publisher said, Michael, that particular story, like when I sent my manuscript in 2013, when I wrote that book, my publisher said, this is a great story, this is the best story in your book, but it's significantly longer than all the other stories. So she really recommended that we cut it down, and we did significantly. But anyway, long story short, this is something I wanted to do, and then turned out that the muscles around my lips are not built in a way that would allow me to hit high-pitched notes consistently. So sometimes I could hit them, sometimes I couldn't. And when you think about instruments like trumpet, like saxophone, the real fucking magic happens at the high pitch level, right? It's not at the kind of low pitch level or mid pitch level, right? So like most of the actions at the mid pitch level, but like the real emotions are being, same with the guitar. When you have like a guitar solo, you really fucking get a hard on when they go, you know? And if you have all your fucking fingers, you're gonna be fine to do it on a guitar, right? Because like all you need is fingers for that, and obviously practice. But unfortunately, in my case with the trumpet, the desire wasn't enough, because there was just something off around my lips, right? There's nothing you can see, or it's nothing you can feel. It's not like it's visible or anything like that. But on those bases, I got sacked from the music school I was in. But then instead of just accepting it, I thought to myself, okay, who's the best jazz trumpet player alive? And conveniently, it was a Polish guy at the time. He passed away a few years ago, but there was a guy called Tomasz Stańko who lived in Warsaw. I'm not from Warsaw myself. I'm from the other side of the country. But anyway, long story short, I went to see him on the train for 8 hours. I went to his house unannounced. I was trying to call him before. That was before internet, right? I was trying to call him before, but he wouldn't answer the phone. So I was like, fuck it, I'm going to Warsaw. And I'm going to stand in front of this guy's house until he lets me in. I don't give a shit, right? Because at that time, my goal was very simple, and that is to be the biggest fucking name in jazz when it comes to trumpet, right? And anyway, I got to his house eventually. I met him. He said, okay, I told him the whole story before. And then he's like, okay, just play the sound for me. And I played the sound, and he said, forget about it. Just forget about it. And I knew, because okay, the teachers in the music school, it's one thing, you know, they had my back. It wasn't political, it wasn't personal. I knew that my trumpet teacher at school knew that I cared about trumpet more than anybody else in that fucking school, right? And he was a great guy. And I knew that I was struggling, because like, you know, it was clear to me that something was off, right? And he confirmed it. And on those bases, they let me go from the school. But then I wanted to get a second opinion, and who's better than the top jazz trumpet player to give you a second opinion on something like that, right? So that's why I went to that guy, and he just needed to hear one sound to say basically what my trumpet teacher said, which is forget about it, something is off. And I remember him saying, he said, listen, it's not like, and this is the same thing that my trumpet player, trumpet teacher said at school. He said, it's not that you can't play, it's just you will never be able to be the best, basically, right? Like forget about being like a top jazz trumpet player. And I said to both of them, I said, I'm not interested in playing a game unless I know I can win, right? If somebody said to me, you know, like, oh, I love tennis, I want to be a great tennis player, and I want to win Wimbledon, and then I lose my fucking right arm, and say, listen, you can still play tennis with your left hand, right? And you can still play, you know, you can still enjoy playing tennis, but I'm not interested in playing fucking tennis professionally if I can't be the best, right? So I knew that going to see that guy in his place in Warsaw, I knew that that's going to be a very, very important moment of my life, because I knew that based on what he's going to say, I will either never touch the trumpet again, or I will continue practicing, you know, probably for the rest of my life, right? But he said, forget about it. And that was the last time I played the trumpet in his house, this one note. I closed it, I put the trumpet back in a suitcase. I closed the suitcase, and I've never touched the trumpet since. and not so much anymore. And interesting enough, it was exactly 10 years, almost to the month, between that conversation I had in his place in Warsaw and me discovering coaching. It was almost exactly 10 years. For those first 10 years, every time I would hear the trumpet, I would feel the way people feel. I've never experienced that myself, but the way people feel when they see someone that they love but they can't be with. So imagine you want to be with a particular girl and you can't get her and she ends up marrying somebody else, and then you see her on the street, and how do you feel? You feel like fuck. So that's how I felt every time I heard trumpet for the first 10 years, which is problematic if your favorite if your favorite type of music is jazz, because there's a lot of trumpet action going on, right? But when I discovered coaching, so to your point about like how things happen for a reason, the universe and all of that, right? When I discovered coaching, and only when I discovered coaching as a career, I understood why I couldn't play trumpet to begin with, right? Because as much as I enjoyed playing trumpet, I enjoy coaching even more. As much as I love the idea of being a top jazz musician, I love the idea of being a top coach even more. So it just wasn't meant to be. It's one of those things I felt a little bit of sadness, like I said, every time I would hear the trumpet for the first 10 years. But I've never felt, and this is something that we all want to be mindful of, because it's so easy, and you would know this obviously, it is so easy to allow ourselves to fall into this trap of poor me. This is so unfair. And actually I said that, I was a fucking kid, right? I said those very words in that guy's house, right? In that top jazz trumpet player house. I said something like, oh, this is so unfair because nobody in my music school cares about it half as much as I do, and they play fucking better than me. And he was like, very charismatic guy. He stood up and he fucking hit his coffee table. He said, he pointed at me and he said, life is not fair. Remember this, life is not fair. And I'm sitting there, a fucking teenager, thinking, fuck, he's obviously right. Like, I get it. So yeah, I never allowed myself, in life in general, no matter what was happening, there were much worse things that happened to me than like that trumpet thing. I never allowed myself to, and I emphasize the word allowed, because it's different to say I never did feel sorry for myself, as opposed to I didn't allow myself to feel sorry for myself. Because the tendency, it's natural for us to feel sorry for ourselves when something bad happens to us, or to question how this could happen. This is not fair. But me being mindful of that, I created this rule that when shit hits the fan, I don't give myself a permission to fall into this trap of a fucking victim. Why? Because victim is powerless, and I refuse to be powerless or see myself as powerless. I feel powerful every fucking day, regardless of how I wake up feeling. Whether I wake up feeling happy or I wake up feeling sad. Whether I feel lonely, whether I feel like there's lots of people in my life, everybody loves me. I have different moods, right? But I don't allow the moods to determine my sense of feeling powerful and fearless and capable of anything, right? And I appreciate I'm a product of 16 years of personal development, right? But those are the things I talk to my clients on a daily basis, and that in itself gives me a motivation to see myself as such, because how the fuck I'm gonna be telling you, if you're my client, hey, you can have anything you want. You are powerful, you are bulletproof, you're like, whatever I say, who am I saying those things if I don't walk my talk?
Yeah, no, very true. I get it. On that, no, so two things I want to pick up on. One of them is quite often when people talk about, I want to be the best, I want to be this, I want to be that, then people can look at people and think, well, that's arrogance. And then other people, quite often, normally the person saying it will go, well, no, that's confidence. So how do you define the difference between confidence and arrogance?
Sure. So I like to think that, so people who actually know me, including yourself, I would put you in this category. You see the external layer of bravado and something that could be seen as arrogant sometimes, but you get me, you know that underneath that is someone very different, right? So especially people who have met me several times, all my clients, all my girlfriends, even all the girlfriends, like I broke up with all my girlfriends, right? I'm not bragging, I'm just, you know, it's a fact, right? So I throughout my life, I have been in 5 regular relationships from the age of 16 to the age of 34. And I happen to be the one who like broke them off, right? I guarantee you, even if you ask any of those girls that I let go of, right, sooner or later, even them wouldn't tell you that I'm arrogant because they fucking knew me. They knew, they'll be like, yeah, he's like, you know, he does a lot of barking, but he doesn't bite. So like, I know myself, and everybody who knows me knows that too, right? And then there are people who don't know me, and they will make a judgment of me based on my controversial Facebook post, right? And they will call me heartless, and they will say, how can you say that? This is like the dumbest fucking thing to say. How can you say that, especially given that you're a life coach? When I said, like years ago, I made a post and I said, in my opinion, most of the homeless people are homeless by choice. It is my fucking belief. I'm not asking you to believe in what I believe in, but it's my fucking wall, right? If you have a problem with my post, unfollow me. Very simple solution, right? But we are obviously fortunate enough to live in a country where there's free speech, and I will continue exercising my right of saying what I think for the rest of my life, right? So people who don't know me will often not see me as confident. They will see me as cocky. They will see me as arrogant. They will see me as full of myself. And I say, listen, I'm the person to say I am full of myself, you know, and I highly recommend that to anyone, because that's when you find happiness, you know, when you fall in love with yourself. And when you fall in love with yourself, you are full of yourself, right? But I like to think on a day-to-day basis, I like to think that I operate, quote unquote, operate on the very line between confidence and arrogance. So I'm more than just confident, but I'm not quite arrogant.
How do you define the two?
So, excuse me. So confidence is built on a foundation of the way I see it, on self-acceptance first and foremost, self-respect first and foremost. When you accept yourself, and I often say how I accept myself 100%, not because I'm perfect, I know I'm not. I accept myself 100% despite all the imperfections and weaknesses that I recognize in myself, right? That's true self-acceptance. I mean, not because if you accept yourself on the basis of thinking that you are perfect, you're fucking delusional, or your name is Donald Trump, right? One or the other, right? Or you're a fucking narcissist of some sort, right? But, you know, let's assume that there was a perfect person out there, which I don't believe there is, not that I've met one. And they are perfect, and it's been scientifically proven that they are perfect, and on those bases they fully accept themselves. That's hardly a fucking achievement, right? The real challenge is to accept yourself fully, knowing that you are imperfect, right? So to your question, it's the combination of self-acceptance and self-respect. And what I mean by self-respect is, as much as I respect other people or people in general, I will always respect myself more. And that's actually a key when you want to be successful with, you know, from a straight guy's perspective, when you want to be really successful with women, because the moment you show them more respect than yourself, they're not gonna respect you, right? So I'll give you an example. You can be the hottest woman on the planet. If you cancel on me last minute, I'm gonna say, okay, that's fine, let's reschedule. And then I will say, just so you know, if you cancel me again, you will never hear from me again, right? And let me tell you, those really attractive women, they've never heard a guy talking to them like that before, right? And the same thing, and I apply the same fucking rules, whether I'm talking to women I date or the people I work with or prospective clients. I don't care who they are, whether they are royalty, whether they own half of London, because they have this property empire. I don't care who they are. I will always respect myself more. So if I feel that the client is fucking with me, or prospective client especially, I'm gonna call them out, right? And the way I see it is almost like an act of love when I call people out, because that's me giving them opportunity to apologize, or to say, oh, no, I didn't mean it, like, or explain themselves, right? And if they don't, what do I do? If they are clients already, if they are prospective clients, I say, listen, we're not gonna meet anymore. Like, this is not the right fit, right? I can tell already, right? And they're usually shocked, especially if they're high profile people, because again, they've never heard those words coming from a service provider. They are used to everyone sucking their dicks, because that's what happens when you are very attractive female or very successful person, business person, or person in general, right? Business or otherwise, right? And then this fucking Polish guy comes along and says, hey, listen, I'll give you the respect up to the point that I experience any form, even on a micro level, any form of disrespect from you. When I experience that as a quote unquote act of love, I will call you out on it in a very polite, professional way. I never get angry. I never shout at anyone anymore, or rarely. Don't remember last time I shouted at someone, but and in some cases with clients, I let clients go, and they are fucking shocked, because again, how many people have an experience of being fired by a service provider?
Yeah.
Right. Especially people at the high level in terms of like where they are on a food chain. Right. It's like, what the fuck? Like, you are firing me? Like, I've never been fired by anyone. If you're like business owner, especially, like, you've never probably experienced being fired by anyone, let alone by a service provider. But that's down to my self-respect. Okay, right? So, as much as I respect people, I will always respect myself more. And those two things, self-acceptance and self-respect, are at the basis of my confidence. Yeah. And when you have a lot of that, it might come across as arrogance. I appreciate that.
So one of the things that you've said about is your opinion of yourself. So obviously we're just speaking about confidence, but that having that that you don't care about anybody's opinion of you because you're so rock solid with your opinion of yourself. There's a lot of people, you and I both know this, of people that don't have that. They do care about other people's opinions. They do worry what other people think of them. So if someone's listening to this right now and they are one of those people, what are the strategies, or what are the things that they can do to have that bulletproof self-confidence and not care about what other people think?
Sure. So before I answer this question, I just want to add something to the previous thing we were talking about. So the difference between confidence and arrogance, and you know, the way I see it, arrogance is when you start to think that you are better than other people. And I do appreciate that I might come across, you know, especially when I say, oh, my website is better than anybody else's, and all of that's like, okay, you know, yeah, I really believe that. But I never say that I'm better than anybody else on a spiritual level. Yes, I'm a better coach than I was a year ago, and I'm certainly a better coach than a coach who just started 2 years ago, right? Can I prove it? No, I'm just making an assumption that I am, just like I'm improving every year as a coach. So naturally, I'll be better than a coach who just started, right? But, you know, it's still subjective. Whereas website, it's less subjective because I've seen lots of websites and I just know how much time and effort I put into perfecting everything on my website. But yeah, on a spiritual level, I genuinely don't think I'm better than anyone. But at the same time, because if I would, that would be that arrogance that I'm talking about. But at the same time, I don't think anybody's better than me. So that's the confidence. Right. So I see everyone as equal on a spiritual level. And obviously some people are better at certain things than the others. Right. I suck at most things. I'm very average at a lot of things. And there's only a few things I know exceptionally well. Right. And I feel confident enough to challenge any authority on the planet in those particular fields. Right. But as far as your last question is concerned, so let me just first of all clarify that it wouldn't be correct or accurate to say that I don't care what anybody thinks of me. Of course I fucking care what people think of me. I don't care what the society thinks of me, so people as a whole, collectively. But if I didn't care about anybody's opinion of me, that would mean that I'm a fucking sociopath. Or have a mental condition of some sort, because a healthy human being will always care about what at least some people think of them. I really care about what my parents think of me because I love them. I really care about what my clients think of me because I love them and they pay me a lot of money to work with me, right? So it's important that they, think that I know what I'm doing and I have the back, right? For multiple reasons, including the one that they pay me for the service, right? And I take a lot of responsibility to make sure that I meet the expectations, right? I take a lot of ownership in that. But I don't care what the society thinks of me, and I certainly don't care even when it comes to people like my family and my clients, like the closest people in my life, my favorite girlfriends, etc. Even with those people, I don't care what they think of me to the point where I would edit it myself. I would edit myself to please them, right? So I'll be more mindful of what I say, how I say with those people, because I actually care about those people, right? And just like I can say I care for all human beings, but like not at the same level. Because if I don't know you, naturally I'm not gonna care about you as much as I care about my fucking mother, right? And on a practical level, like to answer your question, how do we get to that point where we care less about what other people think of us? Is to remind myself of for anybody listening, for you to remind yourself every time you find yourself thinking too much about other people's perception of you, is for you to remind yourself that you're not that important. And nobody really, apart from if you have a good relationship, if your mother's still alive, and if you have a good relationship with your father, if you have a husband, wife, if you have kids, right? So those kind of people, your closest friends, apart from this small group of people, nobody really cares about you that much, right? If I was to fucking drop dead tomorrow, there'll be very few people that would actually cry, right? A few people will be annoyed, all the clients that paid up front for coaching, they'll be like, shit, what about my coaching that I paid for, right? Like how he's gonna deliver the coaching now when he's dead. But other than that, you're like, oh, okay, this guy is dead. And, a month from now, hardly anyone, apart from those few people will remember me. And a year from now, we're like, Michael Serwa, who's Michael Serwa, right? So it's something to remind ourselves in the moments like that we are not that important. So the number one reason I believe we care too much what other people think of us, because we see ourselves as way more important than we actually are. Like people are too busy thinking about what you think of them to think about you and what you think and what they think of you. They're too busy thinking about your judgment of them than to be sitting there and judging you. Right? You walk into the room and you think everybody's looking at you and you're like, fuck, I put the wrong socks and I have different color socks. Like, fuck. Like nobody fucking is looking at your socks. Nobody's giving a fuck about your socks. And even if they do notice, just act as if you did it on purpose. And they're gonna think, damn, this guy doesn't give a fuck. Who is this guy? Right? He has two different socks or two different shoes. And he's walking like nothing happened, like I want to meet this guy. Right? So yeah, number one reason is like we just take ourselves too seriously. You would know this, I don't take myself seriously, not even close. I take what I do extremely seriously. And it's back to what I was saying before, like I take a lot of responsibility for the fact or in the fact that, I charge for a service and people trust me with large amounts of money and, and money that they pay up front. And I have a sense of responsibility to deliver. Right. So I take this very, very fucking seriously. I'm very fucking serious about what I do and how I do it. But do I take myself seriously? I never fucking did. Do I take life seriously? I never fucking did. So another thing, speaking of life, another thing is even more extreme than the first thing is like, nobody cares about you that much. Don't worry about it. You know, just fucking move on with your life. You're not a fucking celebrity. Unless you are Tom Cruise listening to this, nobody really gives a fuck about you that much. Yeah. So just think about that next time you find yourself obsessing about what she's going to think of you, what he's going to think of you, right? Just live your life, be you, be true to who you are. If you don't know who you are, do personal development, right? That's the vehicle that I've used to understand who I am, right? It took me 34 years, now I'm 39. So only for the last 5 years, I can honestly say that I've arrived, I know who I am. It took me 34 years. And 11 years of that was spent on personal development to really understand who I was, right? Because if you don't know who you are, the advice I can give you, or be yourself, I'd be like, I'm 20, I have no idea who I am. So like your advice of me being, you know, true to myself is like, how can I be true to myself if I don't know who I am, right? So first of all, we need to identify who we are, and that takes time and effort. And second of all, if you want to have a happy life, the only way to have a happy life is to live being true to yourself. And it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what your opinions are. It doesn't matter, as long as your interests are not illegal, you're gonna be just fine, right? You're gonna be just fine. And no matter what it is that you like, what it is that you are into, what else that you stand for, especially now in 2022, you will find with or using the vehicle of internet, you will find many people sharing your views, right? So this whole idea of I'm gonna change myself, I'm gonna do something I don't want to do so I can please my parents. I'm gonna do something that I don't want to do so I can be accepted by the society. It's the fastest route to a life full of disappointment, as far as I'm concerned. You know, so I have absolutely no interest in that. I welcome haters. You know. In fact, I had this realization after coaching for a year and a half that nobody was criticizing me. And I recognized that as a problem. And I thought, that's not how you build an empire, by having no critics. You know, if you have nobody in your life criticizing you right now, it means that you're basically nobody. Because only by being nobody, doing nothing at home, never leaving your house, you might find yourself in a position that you have no critics. The more you're gonna speak up, the more you're gonna get out of the house, the more you're gonna share your opinions, the more critics you're gonna get, right? So I welcome critics. When I get criticized, I welcome it. I see that as an indicator of me being on the right path, because I understand, I've learned that a long time ago, that for every, I don't really have haters. I don't think anybody is sitting there hating me, you know, but there are definitely people who don't like me. I know that for every person who feels strongly against me, right, they will have that strong emotion, and it's not a positive emotion, it's a negative emotion. I know that for every person like that, there's gonna be one person at least who's gonna absolutely fucking love me, and my coaching style in particular. That's what I'm talking about, right? For every person who's gonna look at my website and be like, "Fuck this guy," and his fucking picture on a homepage, standing there like a proud cock, you know, with a fucking Big Ben in the background, you know, on some fucking terrace. Yeah, I know that for every person with such a strong negative emotion, there's gonna be someone who's gonna be like, "This is my guy." And sure enough, that's how I built my success as a coach, not by trying to speak to everyone with my copy and with the way I am. I'm looking for my people. My people dig me exactly the way I am, right? I don't need to edit myself. The way I'm talking to you right now is the way I always talk, is the way I talk to my clients, female, male, young, old, doesn't matter. And guess what? We share similar values. We share similar priorities in our lives, and it just works.
Good to hear. And I think on that note then, so just one final thing before we look at rounding up. If there was one thing that you could say is, I say one thing, the most common thing that is people that come to work with you, that they leave with and I mean tool here, so things that you introduce to someone that they then apply in their life, what would you say that one thing is?
One thing, so we've covered that in depth. Even early today, I saw a client, and we were talking a lot about him pushing himself more. And when I say pushing himself within that idea as to who he wants to become. So being true to himself, basically, so that's definitely one of the common things, because adding up to what I was saying before, or what I was going with something before is, this other realization that no matter what you do and how you do it, you're not gonna be here forever, right? So, and obviously nobody knows when the last day is gonna come and when you're gonna check out, right? So I've made this decision a long time ago that if I was to get hit by the bus, and there's like this few seconds before you check out, and your whole, as they say, your whole life goes, in front of you, the last thing I want is to regret that I didn't do something, that I've pussied out on doing the things I wanted to do, So that's a very common theme in my coaching. It's like, what would you do? I asked the client earlier today, what would you do in this particular situation if you knew no fear, right? So one of the things I do constantly is I push people who are already successful in financial terms most of the time, right? Often very successful in financial terms, but as you know, Will, financial success doesn't equal happiness, doesn't equal fulfillment, right? And the general idea, the philosophy I have, is that I never wanted just to have money or have great relationships or be fit. I wanted all of those things, right? I want all of my clients to be wealthy. They usually are already wealthy when they come to me, right? Not always, but most of the time these days. I want them to be wealthy, in no particular order, wealthy, healthy, and happy at the same time, right? So the majority of the work I do with my clients is around happiness, then health. Like I said, money is usually there. They really come to me for me to help them to make more money. They have far more money than me, right? So they don't need fucking my help. They could coach me on how to make money, if anything. So I've challenged my ultra high net worth client last year, for example. I said, you've already built an enormous amount of wealth, financial wealth. I challenge you. And I knew that, he's a smart guy. I knew that he will know what I'm doing. And I was fine with it. I knew he's going to be able to see right through my quote unquote trick, or the trap that I'm putting up for him. I basically said to him, I challenge you to become as happy as you are wealthy, right? So it's for majority of the work that I do is as the title of my book would suggest, from good to amazing. So when people come to me, they're already in a good place. Nobody comes to me at 0, 1, or 2 out of 10 on a happiness level. Usually people who come to me for coaching are somewhere between 4 and 6 out of 10 on a happiness level. I know that because we measure that. Or I ask them basically, so I'm not just making this up. I'm not guessing. We measure that. And like I said, usually they have the money. So it's not the money that's a problem. It's other things that are a problem. And what I'm working with them on is to make sure that other areas of the lives match the financial success that they typically already have, right? And there's all sorts of things, but as I said before, one of the most common things is me pushing them to do the things that are outside of the comfort zone, and questions like, what would you do if you felt fearless already, right? What would you do if you knew you could do anything, right? What exactly would you do? They're intelligent people, right? Most of them are smarter than me. They fucking know what they need to do most of the time. They just don't do it. And that's where I come in to make sure that they actually act on the things that they already know. I don't need to educate my clients on life. They're really smart people, like I said, right? And yes, in terms of so-called life intelligence, I might be more intelligent than them. In terms of IQ, they are smarter than me, most of them. In terms of EQ, half of them have as high of an EQ as I have, right? So is the so-called life intelligence that I believe that I have at the higher level than literally like majority of people on the planet, right? And that's why I have something to offer to those people who on the surface level, in the eyes of society especially, they have it all. They have the money, they have a professional recognition typically. They're usually in a good shape, not all of them, but most of them are in a good shape. So like the health is fine. And most of the time is the happiness / fulfillment component that is often missing. And that's where I come in with my coaching and using the methods and methodologies and processes that I've been developing over the last decade. Most of the time, I'm able to, in a short amount of time, so within few months, typically, I'm able to take that 4, 5, 6 out of 10 happiness score to approximately 8 out of 10.
Cool. Sounds good. So it's that's the outcome that those guys get. So Michael, look, it's been great speaking with you. And in terms of there's a lot of different areas that we've covered, and no doubt people that have been listening to this have been able to take value from it. If people are thinking, right, I want to find out more about this guy, where can people connect with you? How can they find out more about you?
Very simple, my full name.com, and then from my website, there are links to my book, there are links to my social media platforms, the ones that I'm on. So no TikTok, no Twitter, but all the other ones. So yeah, michaelserwa.com is the best place to go to.
Sounds good. Well, guys, I hope you've taken lots of benefit from that. Absolutely go and check out michaelserwa.com and then be able to connect with Michael on various socials, but obviously not TikTok and not Twitter, or at least not anytime soon. And
subject to change, but I don't think so.
Take care, guys. Speak soon.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Make It Happen with Will Polston podcast. Make sure you join Will's free Facebook group, the Make It Happen community. Please support the show by subscribing on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or Google Play. Share this episode with at least one friend you think would benefit from it, and give Will a 5-star review wherever you download your podcasts. Until next time, make it happen.